I checked my reflection in the glass doors of the Kingswell Hotel's penthouse lobby, brushing a loose strand of hair behind my ear. The navy blazer I wore cost just under $80, 0 cents, snagged at a New Year clearance sale in Toronto. I straightened the lapel. Tonight I'd be walking into another carefully curated family gathering, pretending I hadn't heard every whispered jab over the years. The elevator doors parted with a soft chime, revealing the opulent rooftop lounge overlooking Vancouver Harbor. There they were, the Everetts. My family, real estate moguls of the British Columbia coastline, and experts in thinly veiled contempt. Well, look who actually showed up, my older sister Clarissa drawled, champagne flute in hand. We figured your remote admin job had you too busy. Gave her a neutral smile and took the seat farthest from the fire pit, right beside my father, who glanced at my off-brand heels like they'd insulted the family crest. Long day, I said smoothly. Had to wrap a few things. You're still doing assistant work, right? My younger brother Miles asked, eyes glued to his smartwatch. Calendar invites and all that? Something like that, I replied. My actual title? CEO of Larkspur Capital. But they'd find out soon enough. Dad exhaled dramatically. Emery, you're 36. When are you going to stop playing small? Clarissa just closed on 2 new resorts. Miles is working on a $14 million 0 cents commercial tower. And I'm staying afloat, I replied mildly. Clarissa smirked. You'll love tomorrow's announcement. Everett Group's finalizing a $90 million 0 cents joint venture with Halbert & Co. Their CEO's flying in to sign the paperwork. Halbert & Co., my company. We've been prepping for months, Miles added. They're sending some exec named, Emery Locke? Sounds like a secretary. Maybe, I said, lifting my wine. You'll see tomorrow. They chuckled and returned to toasting themselves. Meanwhile, I reviewed the deal terms in my head. The same deal they'd need my signature to complete. And I was ready to let them wait. They've always called me the black sheep. Still do. But after tomorrow, they'll call me boss. I saw a crack they were too arrogant to notice. Back when I was still just an admin, I worked for a scrappy tech outfit in Burnaby called Kelvin Dynamics. Brilliant software, but no cash runway. When the founders hit the edge of collapse, I used my modest savings and a deep understanding of their operations to quietly buy up controlling shares through a distressed asset deal. They had vision. I had structure. While they focused on R&D, I turned the company around, renamed it Halbert & Co., pivoted the business model, and built it into a stealth mode powerhouse. Now, we hold controlling interest in over 60 companies, including 3 that recently crushed Everett Group in luxury development bids along the Pacific Northwest corridor. I stayed invisible. Proxy accounts, silent boards. I even attended quarterly reviews through anonymized avatars. While Clarissa posted yoga shots from Santorini and Miles chased clout with venture capital circles, I built a private empire, one deal at a time. A waiter refilled our glasses. My mother shifted the conversation to her favorite sore spot, my love life. Emery, if you'd stop hiding behind those drab jackets and make time for real dating, maybe someone like Clarissa's fiancé would notice you. Clarissa beamed. We're hosting the Fraser Gala next Friday, $6,000, 0 cents a plate. Don't worry, Em. We'll make sure you're seated far from the VIPs. Miles barked a laugh. I thought of the invitation sitting on my office desk, personally addressed to Halbert's CEO. I'm comfortable, I said calmly, cutting into my filet. Power dresses itself differently. Dad scoffed. That's what people say when they've settled. Then Clarissa perked up. Remember that little AI startup you worked for? Guess who just bought them? Halbert & Co. Miles laughed. Should have stuck around, Em. You might have been part of something real. I folded my napkin slowly, barely containing a smile. Emery, my mother sighed. They say Halbert's CEO is ruthless, private, cold, not someone like you. I raised my glass and said softly, to unexpected endings. The CEO is flying in tomorrow for the signing, Clarissa declared, chin tilted like she was announcing the Queen's arrival. They only partner with elite firms. Says a lot about Everett Group's credibility, doesn't it? Clearly, I said coolly, glancing down at my phone beneath the tablecloth. A priority message from my CFO flashed across the screen, confirmation that our acquisition of a key tech logistics firm in the Bay Area had closed, a strategic $340 million 0 cents play. The kind of deal Clarissa wouldn't understand, even if it came with a PowerPoint. Put that away, my mother snapped, her voice a stage whisper. You don't have anything urgent. At least try to act like you belong here. If only she knew I was finalizing a merger that would dominate the entire western corridor of commercial infrastructure. But I tucked my phone back into my bag. Let them have their illusion a little longer. Dinner rolled on like every other Everett family function. Miles bragging about his yacht party guest list, Clarissa flaunting photos of her upcoming gala, my parents glowing with rehearsed pride. And me, still the family's overlooked footnote. Which was just fine, because tomorrow would rewrite everything. The contract signing was set for 10 a.m. sharp at Everett Group's downtown high-rise. Clarissa had spent nearly a year brokering this partnership, never realizing the masked CEO she'd been schmoozing over email was her disappointing younger sister. As we rose from the table, Clarissa leaned in, smirking. Don't worry, Em. Maybe one day you'll get to tour one of my towers. I'll even comp your parking. I smiled, thought of my lakeside estate outside Whistler, private dock, zero mortgage. That's generous of you, Clarissa. And if you think this dinner was awkward, wait until tomorrow's boardroom. Miles slapped his black Amex down. Next round's at my loft in Yaytown. He grinned. Might be a bit upscale for some. I swung my canvas tote over my shoulder. Good luck tomorrow, I said softly. I hope it plays out just the way you expect. Clarissa smirked. Try not to be late, Emery. I strolled past their imported SUVs toward my parked Civic under a flickering street lamp. Tomorrow, I'd arrive in my Phantom. And tomorrow, the charade would end. But tonight, I returned to my discreet high-rise flat in Kitsilano, powered up my secure terminal, and closed a strategic acquisition that would reshape predictive AI across Western. Because real power doesn't broadcast, it moves quietly, until silence becomes impossible. What happens when the black sheep walks into the boardroom, holding the pen everyone's waiting on? Stick around, the reveal is coming, and trust me, you'll want front row seats. Tap subscribe, so you're there when the truth detonates like a bombshell. This morning there was no hesitation. I stepped into a custom midnight glue cashmere pantsuit. Millen-tailored, built to whisper legacy without needing to scream. My executive assistant Jordan had double confirmed every protocol. This wasn't just a deal signing. This was justice with a signature. The lobby of Everett Tower gleamed with imported stone and commissioned sculptures, until the revolving doors parted at 9:55 a.m. They entered, my heels slicing through the hush with each step. Gone was the woman in worn canvas flats. Now stood the CEO of Halbert & Co. Jordan walked just behind me, carrying a crocodile leather case worth more than Miles' entire crypto portfolio. The concierge blinked as I approached. Ms. Locke, he stammered. I don't see your name listed with Everett Group. Check again, I said evenly. Search Halbert & Co. His fingers paused mid-keystroke, then jolted as the screen updated. Right, of course, Ms. Locke. VIP credentials. Executive lift. This way. Every eye in the lobby followed as I passed. Each step echoed like a countdown. The elevator to the 42nd floor held only silence. Me, Jordan, and 7 years of strategy, ascending behind mirrored doors. Through the glass wall of the Everett Group boardroom, I could see them. Clarissa pacing in her rented couture. Miles tugging his collar. My parents, seated at the table's head, practically glowing with pride. Pride built on a foundation they didn't realize I now owned. They're expecting Halbert's CEO at exactly 10 a.m., Jordan said, glancing at his Rolex. I gave a small, measured smile. I'd been ready for this since the day they wrote me off. At exactly 10 o'clock, Jordan opened the boardroom door. Conversation stopped. 4 sets of eyes turned my way. First confusion, then dawning horror. Emery, Clarissa choked. What? Why are you here? We're just about to begin a high-level session, my father said sharply, already annoyed. I know, I replied, setting my leather case gently on the table and clicking it open. That's why I'm here. My mother's eyes narrowed. Emery, if this is one of your little stunts, it's not amusing. I calmly placed a thick contract packet in front of them and slid it forward. No stunts. The CEO of Halberd & Co. has already arrived. The silence was immediate and unmistakably real. My mother clutched the edge of her seat. Miles looked like he was about to be sick. This is absurd, Clarissa barked, voice strained. Where's the actual CEO? I met her stare and said evenly, right here. Then I slid a card across the table. Simple ivory stock. Matte finish. No gilded font. Just clarity. Emery Locke. Founder and CEO, Halberd & Co. My father snatched it up like it might reveal a lie. His complexion flushed to a shade that did nothing for his tailored jacket. This must be some mistake. Halberd is worth billions. You're just a what? I asked, voice calm but sharper now. A nobody? A disappointment? The black sheep who wasn't supposed to make it? I leaned back and let the truth settle. Their empire had just been outbuilt, and I was the one holding the pen. Jordan stepped forward and placed sealed folders in front of each person at the table. Finalized investment agreements, I said smoothly. Have your legal team review Clause 7.2 closely. It outlines operational oversight terms. Breaching them voids the deal. Clarissa clawed hers open, fingers twitching as she flipped pages. This has to be some kind of mix-up, she murmured. You answer phones. You schedule meetings. Not since I was 28, I replied, voice steady. The AI firm I worked for? I acquired it, rebuilt it from scratch. Since then, I've bought out more than 50 companies, including, as of Q2, the Pacific real estate portfolio from Lenox Capital. Miles dropped into his chair like the wind had left his lungs. The luxury condo you keep showing off on Instagram, I added. It's financed by a REIT I own, one I created under Halberd's holding structure. My mother's voice shook. But, the Civic, your apartment, you wear the same coat every winter. Intentional, I said simply. Some of us choose assets over aesthetics. True power rarely shows off. My father's tone turned cold. Why keep this hidden from us? Because you only value what you think you control, I answered. And I never planned on being controlled again. I stood, adjusting my tailored navy skirt, composed, in command. The dismissed daughter was gone. Now I was the architect of the deal. Let's begin, I said, placing a Montblanc pen by the contract. Halberd & Co. is prepared to invest $80 million 0 cents into Everett Group, but before signing, we should walk through the fine print. Clarissa had gone chalk white. You've been negotiating with me this whole time? Through intermediaries? I nodded. Though your opening valuation was optimistic. Luckily, I had internal access. What followed was an exquisitely quiet hour. For them. I led the review, clause by clause, pausing just long enough to watch the realization set in. They weren't in control. Not anymore. The $80 million 0 cents wasn't charity, it was salvage. Everett Group was hemorrhaging money beneath the polish. Their glossy brochures and inflated press releases couldn't hide the bleeding books. I had every audit trail and vendor receipt to prove it. Now then, I said, turning to the final clause, this agreement includes mandatory restructuring. Effective immediately, I looked directly at Clarissa. You were moved as project lead. Her mouth fell open. You can't do that. I brought this partnership in. I built it. You branded it, I corrected. But every development proposal, every financial model you pitched, those were Westbridge-owned strategies, funneled through shell subsidiaries. You were fronting my blueprint without ever knowing it. Then I turned to Miles. His forced smirk had long vanished. And those balloon loans you've been juggling to buy time? Halberd now holds the majority stake in your debt. Technically, you now work for me. My father stood, fists clenched. Now listen here, Emery. This is absurd. You think you can just waltz in here? I don't think, I said coolly. I know, Halberd isn't some scrappy player. We hold equity in over 70 firms. Everett Group barely registers on the dashboard. I let the silence settle like a fog. But since we share DNA, I'm offering a choice. Sign the contract, accept the terms, or don't, and I'll call the debt. Clarissa's shoulders curled inward. Miles looked pale. My mother sat frozen, her pearls slack against her collarbone. And my father finally reached for the pen. His hand shook as decades of pride dissolved into quiet ink. One by one, they signed. Jordan collected the folders as I rose and slid into my cashmere coat. I've got another meeting across town, I said, fastening the buttons. Feel free to see yourselves out. I glanced around the elegant but aging boardroom. My real office makes this place feel like a well-decorated storage closet. Jordan will coordinate your transition. At the door, I paused. Oh, and Clarissa, about that Fraser Gala next month. She blinked, hesitant. Yes? I gave her a faint smile. Don't worry about an invitation. I purchased the venue last year. In fact, I now own most of the buildings your charity galas take place in. Funny how that works, isn't it? The ride back to Halberd & Co.'s true headquarters, a minimalist tower in Cole Harbor with sweeping views of the Burrard Inlet, gave me time to exhale. The confrontation had been satisfying, yes, but this wasn't about revenge. It was about release. I was done pretending. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. Why didn't you tell us? I looked out over the Vancouver skyline, remembering every dinner where they laughed at my second-hand coat, my aging Civic, my directionless life. Because you wouldn't have believed me. You only ever listened to noise. In the months that followed, the narrative shifted. Clarissa was quietly reassigned to a consulting liaison post. Decorative, harmless. The initiatives she claimed as hers were finally credited to Halberd's internal innovation team. Miles' portfolio was absorbed by our distressed asset division. He kept a title, not authority. And my parents? Suddenly, they were proud. Rewriting history at garden parties and yacht brunches, telling anyone who would listen about their visionary daughter, the quiet genius who'd always been destined for greatness. I let them talk. It cost me nothing. I kept the Kitsilano flat for grounding and finally donated the Civic to a women's recovery shelter in Surrey. My real homes, including the penthouse crowning Halberd Tower, remained out of view. Intentionally, the next family dinner, it took place in my private executive suite, 60 stories above the city, under soft pendant lights and walls of glass that opened onto the ocean. They marveled at the quiet opulence, the curated art, the stillness that came from never needing to prove anything again. I raised a glass of aged Barolo, older than Miles' startup experience. Success, I said softly, isn't in what you show. It's in what you build when no one's watching. No one replied. For once, the black sheep had silenced the entire flock. But the twist? I still shop at small markets. I still wear the coat they mocked, because real power doesn't need to perform. It simply is. If you've read this far, thank you for seeing me. I was the one they dismissed. The quiet one, the afterthought. If you've ever been written off or laughed at, leave a comment, share your story. And if this moved you, subscribe, not for spectacle but for truth. The ones they underestimate often become the ones rewriting the rules. You don't owe anyone a show. You owe yourself a legacy. Build it quietly, fiercely, and on your terms. The New York Innovation Summit was in full swing, golden uplighting washing over the marble